Here we are with you, Maree. 3 minutes, 33 seconds. I'll pull you up. All right.
That we all share. Got a little soul speak on the ascension that we all share. This unveiling, this apocalypse. You know, all this discussion of what is reality, conspiracy, heresy, truth that's stranger than fiction. Doesn't get any better than this. It's not just time to bring on the apocalypse, it's time to start riding it. It's not going to hurt us. Because one thing's for sure, in our conscious mind and even in our subconscious, if that's what you want to call it, we have always survived. And the reason for that is because we never die. So when it comes to ascension, what else is there to talk about? This ascension, unveiling, is not complicated. It's just a microcosm of the state of our being from any point, from this present moment to any point in our past. And in regard to the past, now we can look back to see, to awaken without the element of linear time. Yeah. Because the wisdom still comes. Because the universe is never late. That means we can take from our past the powerful wisdom of the eternal moments, seen when we unveil the hurts and the blame given and received. You know, we've reached a point where forgiveness will cease to exist. Because perfection did not create forgiveness, but as a path to a higher perfection, a new reflection of itself, of ourselves. Yeah, it's true. It's just not necessary forgiveness, and neither is earth love. So we can stop chasing both right now and all the false securities and failed searches that go with the lofty goals of a moral world. Both the things that they put beyond our reach and the reasons they gave us for not being able to reach them. It's time to re-enter the fold of the immortal, the fold of the I Am soul.
How's it going, everybody? We're going to pull up our beloved sister, guest, Maree Batchelor. Here, just 1 second. Hello, Maree.
Hello there, Todd. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's nice to hear your accent. I live with one of those, so that's a very comforting feeling.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in and sharing space with us today.
Oh, I'm very excited and very happy to do so. And thank you so much for inviting me on your show. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in Sedona at the end of last year, and I just realized today when I was looking for your stuff, that Tolik, my friend Tolik, he had told me about you. I covered his conference, one of his couple of his functions over there last year. And yeah, you got to meet this lady. You got to meet this lady. So here we are. Perfect timing.
Excellent. And another example of the synchronicities that come through this matrix reality to assist us to connect up. So that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's the cookie crumb trail home, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. And yeah, what a cookie crumble it is.
And things are getting really interesting.
Oh, absolutely. And I must mention too, before we sort of get into the interview, that I had a client contact me by email a few weeks ago requesting to have a session because she'd seen the interview on Soulology that she loved of us together on interview.
What?
She comes online a couple of days ago. She's in America. Here I am in Australia. She says, yeah, that was a great interview with Todd Medina. I said, I haven't done it. She said, no way. I saw the whole thing. It was great. I took down your details. But what was interesting is I couldn't find the interview when I went back to look for it. And I said, honey, this interview hasn't taken place yet. It was a timeline jump, and I am seeing this more and more with people having these experiences as we're collapsing down timelines, timeline jumping, experiencing parallel timelines and realities, and incredible. So there's an example. The interview has taken place in some other reality, and she saw it.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. That's validation right there.
Absolutely.
Let me give everyone a little bio on you. I know a little bit about you through Morgan and Tolik, but I forgot to do the bio introduction on the last show. So let me make sure I get it done on this one. Dr. Maree Batchelor, MD, new human physician and energy medicine DNA healer. Dr. Maree Batchelor worked in mainstream medicine as a GP for over 20 years, as well as her medical degree. She has a diploma of I can't pronounce it.
Obstetrics and gynecology.
Gynecology, and is a fellow of the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners. She is also a mother of 5 children. After the tragic death of her son in 2008, she experienced an awakening and went on to study and practice with a holistic approach to her patients. Spiritual counseling, meditative self-inquiry, and energy healing form the basis of the practice. A further profound experience in India in 2014 propelled her even deeper into the realms of energy medicine and the holographic field. Now, using embodied light frequencies, she removes behavioral triggers and energetic blocks from a patient's physical, emotional, and energetic body. Working as deeply as the DNA level to clean, clear, and activate full potential. This releases past life karma and trauma, dysfunctional family lineage patterns, and the effects of the conditional matrix we all live in today. Her work is multidimensional and consists of energetic counseling and hands-on healing. The relief from her sessions, both in person and by Skype, is life-changing. Sounds, again, you have the same accent, and you and Morgan seem to speak the same language as well.
Very good.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to have you here. Really
Thank
is.
you.
I was excited we were able to finally connect. So, like many of us, you had a life-changing traumatic event, some of the successive ones. You were a little bit early, it looks like. Now, before 2012, were you aware of the energetic field, so to speak, and were you able to see or sense that prior to 2008?
Absolutely not. I was completely 3D, completely believing in the material existence as the only existence. There was no consideration of an afterlife, of past lives, of an energetic being. And I lived a very comfortable, very functional existence. And in fact, I was very blessed to have that 3D existence. But of course, it doesn't prompt you to wake up because everything was fairly perfect in my world. And it was through that, the tragic death of my 4-year-old son in 2008, that profound things started to happen. And I needed to really investigate what was going on. And it was really the only way I could get relief from the death of my son. It was obviously such a horrific experience, and it's often through those sorts of traumas that people do crack open to the reality that we're living in here. And so I was being downloaded and upgraded right from the moment of his accident.
Wow. Did you have a sense of him from the other side, so to speak? Was he part of it?
Absolutely. So at the time of the accident, well, even leading up to the accident, at the age of 4, my son had said to me many times, "I love you more than you, Mum. I love you." And at the time, I thought it was 4-year-old sort of, you know, gobbledygook. And then it was only after the effect that I realised he was saying that he was here to bring forth that big energetic being of me, and that he was actually, I guess, sacrificing his life for that to take place. And of course, that's had a profound trickle-down effect. It's woken up my children, it's, you know, assisted me with my work, and it's having a profound effect on many people across the world. So, you know, this little man with his gift to me, which of course came through such a tragedy, but actually has unfolded in the way that I was downloaded very early on, that there was some big reason for this taking place. I was also receiving a lot of light at the time, and that didn't make sense to me. I was trying to handle the grief, and even right from the start of the accident, I just got, there's something more going on. When he was airlifted off to the hospital and was having open cardiac surgery, unbeknown to me, open cardiac massage, because he died on the table, a light came to me. I was packing to leave to travel up in the car to get to the hospital, and a light came to me and into my third eye. I thought I was getting a migraine because I had no reference point for this, but that's when he had actually died on the table. He then recovered back into ICU, was unconscious for another 11 days and then died. And throughout that period, I was going through the trauma, the grief, the loss, but also having these profound experiences of energy that was supporting me. And it goes with that saying of the peace beyond understanding. And that was really, you know, hard for me to understand, but it prompted me to keep investigating. Wow. After his death, I got downloads of there's more going on. I could hear voices. I actually was calling out, "God, you have to help me," having not been religious or spiritual at all in the past, but I heard voices, you know, you need to be still. You need to meditate. You need to clear out the clutter, simplify. And it was then that I shut the gates of my, you know, very nice house that I lived in, and shut the gates and really started self-inquiry and researching what was going on. So I then went down to the site that he was actually killed, where a car had actually driven by an underage driver out of control and crushed him on a fence on a family walk that we were on. And I went down to the site, which would normally activate sheer anxiety and fear, but a great ball of light came out from the site where he was killed and immersed me. And I had, you know, half an hour of this complete expansion and peace. And I was going, it's all okay, everything's unfolding as it should. But of course, by the time I got home from that experience, I was like, how could this possibly be okay? So I was going from 3D human experience and loss and grief and trauma to this experience of light that was really assisting me. And so I just kept following that light.
Wow. Talk about fast tracking and integrating polarities. That's an amazing, powerful. I mean, I can hear the emotion in it. You know, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what was very difficult was it was a path that I was led to, but not everybody, well, in fact, no one else in my family was actually experiencing any of that. So from their perspective, when I'd try and talk about it, it sounded ludicrous. I come from a very intellectual, 3D, scientific-based family background, and my family of origin couldn't understand it. My husband at the time thought that I was, was really sort of struggling, but in fact I was actually finding answers and cracking open into this awakening experience.
When did you realize that it wasn't just a personal thing, but that it was collective? Was it early on?
Look, it was really when I was guided to Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, and reading that was such a relief. Not only did the frequencies of his writing, help me get activated and aligned, but the truth in that book made me realize there were other people that knew about this. And then that made me sort of further look at religion and the mysticism at the height of religion. And it was fortunate that in my local area, there was an ashram that was running meditation courses and based in a Hindu philosophy. And I went there initially, and that's where I started really deeply looking at things and was supported. And that's what guided me to go to India. The guy who was running the ashram locally had his awakening through doing work in an Indian ashram under a realized being. And that took me to India, where in 2014, I had that profound experience in the temple in the little village in India there.
And what was that like? What happened there?
Oh, look, the minute I got to India, I felt completely different. I could feel a vibration just of the whole country. And then when I got closer and closer to the village, I could feel this energy. And I was there for 2 weeks, and I'd sit in the temple and I'd just be immersed in this peace and light and felt the most amazing I'd ever felt in my life. And then on one particular occasion, I was just asking, well, how come you get to be a realized being? This great being who'd been a human, in human form, had been a healer and an energetic conduit for the years of his life in this little village in Ganeshpuri, and then was buried in the temple there. And he radiates out a frequency from where he's buried. And I was asking, well, how do you get to be realized? You're a human being and the rest of us are humans, but why aren't we accessing that? And then boom, this frequency, this zap really on the head, which ran through my body, which profoundly changed me and rewired me after that event. And a lot of my programming stripped off, and I came back from India and I really was in cosmic consciousness and remained in that state for probably about 18 months. It was great for many reasons as things were stripping off, but everybody thought I was going mad. And I was coming back and telling everybody, oh, we're not alone. We're surrounded by galactic beings, that we're in a matrix here, that we're, being controlled and conditioned, and things are evolving and we're all awakening. And the people around me thought I was mad and actually sent me off to see a psychiatrist to be assessed.
Well, there's quite a few of us here. You're not alone in that one.
Yeah,
oh my God. It's also very refreshing to hear your the candor that you have in regard to that you were totally 3D when it started.
Yeah,
that's pretty. And then the occurrence in the ashram. You talk about the epitome of the answer is in the question.
Yeah.
You got hit immediately with it.
Yeah.
So how did you start to convert your practice?
So initially after William's death, I didn't work for some years. I actually just researched and tried to work out what was going on. I was looking at anthropology, archaeology, astrology. I was looking at the mysticism of religions and really trying to get a grasp on what was happening. And so I started to use that understanding as a form of counseling for people, and that was very helpful. And then I noticed people were having energetic experiences. So I knew then that something was going on, but it was only after India that I really stepped up and started incorporating these energies in the sessions. And I was able to embody this light and actually somehow activate that in somebody else, and they would feel this profound expansion and peace. And people would report that things were going on in the room. They could see beings coming in. They could feel energies. At times I was shape-shifting. I was actually looking like something else, other human forms. I'd shape-shift into the great being that had zapped me on the head, and people would say, you're sitting there as an Indian man in a loincloth. And, these things were happening. So I had to really from the feedback I was getting, sort of investigate further what's really going on here. But what I noticed is that with or without the visuals, because some people don't see, but they would feel, and everybody was having an experience. And I just got downloaded with more understandings and more ways to work with it, to clear off what I see as the sabotaging programming that goes on in this reality, and clear off the technologies, the devices, the infections, the biological warfare, the heavy metals, the, you know, the conditionings that all needed to be released. And that was being downloaded to me in a process that I could then apply to people to help them.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like Morgan's story, you know, where she was downloading for 18 years, specific stuff about, you know, DNA and talking to your DNA, changing your DNA to just all different types of things. And then, you know, after I met her and she said, well, you know, there's a lot of people around the world this is happening to, particularly feminine, and they're just quiet doing it. And that's really that's what's happened as we've expanded the show the last couple of years. We've heard from so many of them. So it's incredibly validating and intriguing.
Absolutely. And, you know, the validation for me comes from so many people that contact me who can relate to the work, who understand the work, who feel the frequency and have a resonance and tell their stories to me of their awakening. And we just can see this is happening. This is happening. Yeah. We are being assisted. The veil is thinning. We're able to access these energies, and more and more of us are able to do that. And it's, you know, it's evident, you know, I'm seeing the evidence of it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I love sitting in this seat and expanding through these discussions, real-time intel. So from your perspective, where are we at now? You know,
wow.
I mean, you know, like I was talking the other day to somebody and we said, you know, it's like phase one was disclosure, or, you know, 9/11 was, you know, could have been something that, you know, and all that stuff started crumbling. And then all of the kind of the connections started occurring, people getting downloads, channelings, dealing with that good pressure on our ego and our whole experience. And now, I don't know, have we got to a point now where we can actually actualize our power? I mean, is that what's happening?
Yeah. Well, look, I think we are, and I'm seeing this more and more with people, and particularly with myself. I'm accessing my power, and I'm accessing more and more as linear time goes on, and getting more understandings and downloads. But I think, you know, we have to keep ourselves very open, very receptive, and really learn from each other and connect with each other to actually bring in pieces of the puzzle. I don't believe that anybody's got the full story. I think we're bringing in pieces of the puzzle. Yeah. I think what's going on now is really people deeply looking at what they've learned in the past and actually working out what really is true for them. I think we've been under a new age sedative where we've been told lots of misinformation, even through the New Age movement of the so-called sort of awakening, where we've been told we're all here learning lessons and it's all part of a, you know, a soul growth, and we've got to know the dark before we know the light, and we've all been good and bad in past lives. And you know, I've actually looked at all that information and most of it doesn't resonate with me anymore. I've come to the conclusion that we've been in a controlled matrix. We've been soul harvested, used and depleted. We've been manipulated and had programs inserted into us from past lives or parallel lives, or even virtual reality experiences that have energetically imprinted in our mental and emotional body to set us up with this fear and anxiety that's so easily activated in this reality. And so, you know, really clearing some of the misinformation that's been spread in, you know, throughout this movement. And that's where I think we're at, is we're really starting to work out what's really true for us.
Yeah. Quick announcement, everybody, we've been getting knocked off Facebook in the audience for the last couple of weeks. This is going to be a great show. You might want to go over to the Zoom room. I pinned the link. Yeah, I love what you're saying. I mean, the whole question, everything, you know, I mean, to me, everything potentially is a program. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And what I've come to the conclusion, and one of the teachings or one of the things that I share with the people that come to me for sessions, is all self-concern is a program. All self-concern. If we know our truth, which is peace, love, joy, well-being, self-healing, infinite energy connected to source, we wouldn't have fear, we wouldn't have anxiety, we certainly wouldn't be projecting into time, which I believe time is also set up to hook us into this you know, future, what's going to happen, will I be okay, will my children be okay, will I have enough money? And that anxiety then sets us up to travel in different timelines, if you like, creating you know, further sabotage and manipulation. And it's only sitting in the present moment, releasing that self-concern, getting out of the past, which of course was all programmed, and I don't believe we have free will until we wake up. So running guilt and shame for past experiences doesn't, you know, serve us. So we need to become very present. And Eckhart Tolle talks about that a lot, and I love his work in terms of the power of now. But I needed to look at why can't we sit in the present moment? Why is it that we can read his book, feel fantastic, but then 2 hours later, we're caught up in time again and in that self-concern and running those programs? And then I realized these are being manipulated and reactivated by, you know, external sources. It's not us. And we need to do the deep work and take self-responsibility and get rid of the deep programs. But I'm also aware that they keep reinfecting us. They keep reactivating us. They keep implanting virtual reality scenarios in our dream state to make us feel like we haven't actually completed, you know, certain areas of release. But in fact, I think part of that is trickery as well. So really dropping all self-concern, dropping the projection into time, sitting in the present moment, and really being aware that these parasitic thought forms are being activated to take us out of that present moment and to keep clearing yourself whenever these things arise.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's I find it interesting, and I obviously I keep my eye on the global stage. And I look at it and I think, just another life preserver, just another savior, just another narrative. It's all the same thing. So whether it's white hats, you know, cabal, Trump, Q, Clintons, or whatever it may be, to me it seems now it's gotten to the point, 2 points I'd want to make. One, that it's a distraction and it's a doorway to distortion. And two, do you feel, I guess this is more of a question, do you feel we've hit a point recently where the spiritual confidence is expanding in the collective, even if it's a small minority, and the doubts are starting to leave and our power is being realized at the molecular, cellular DNA level?
Absolutely. And I love what you're saying about the distractions that are going on in this sort of awakening movement. And it really means that we need to go inwards even further and take further self-responsibility and connect up with who we really are, keeping an eye on what's going on in the outside world, but really going deep within and realizing that a lot of things that are coming up in this movement are distractions and are trying to take us off our path and mislead us somehow. So really becoming the observer of the experience, or what, you know, is often taught to be in the world and not of it, to become that energetic being of confidence, knowing that you're okay, that you're safe, that this is a virtual reality set up here, and the way out of it is to go deep within.
Yeah, and it's getting interesting too, because especially certainly over the last 8 months, like since 11/11 last year, or what was it, the solstice in December, has been in these light worker circles, or whatever you want to call them, the ebb and flow of projection, anchoring, embodying, the new cycle. And it's interesting because things seem to be getting louder and easier to see. And also what you're saying to me speaks to me, because it's like part of, I guess, a measure maybe for me as I'm reflecting with you is how the triggers, you know, the ability to personalize what's coming at you. It's nothing personal. Not to say the protection, but the holding your field. Everything seems to be like pushing us to ourselves, I guess. And I think it can't just be happening in my world. Are you seeing this with your clients? Are you seeing a change collectively or as a whole?
Absolutely. And I think people are recognizing that they can't attach themselves to, sort of a savior, as you say, or an event happening at a certain time. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not getting energies coming in that are assisting us, and there are waves supporting us, and there are benevolent beings coming in, and we've got our access to our higher self. But we don't want to get caught up in the narratives that are being projected at us, understanding that a lot of these narratives are coming to control us. So the idea is that we are these light beings, and we are manifestors and creators of our reality. But the controllers of this matrix system want us to be creators from default programming. So as soon as we're bringing in the light, they're trying to bring in further programming so that we get distracted and off our path. So we need to remember that the light that we are is able to create and manifest, but unclutter the mind of all the perceptions that are not assisting us, and really know the truth to be this peace, love, joy, well-being, self-healing, self-regulating. And anything that's not that is a distortion.
Yeah. And so much of this journey is about remaining open to anything, things that we gravitate to, things that we don't. And on that note, about there is assistance coming in from the light, metaphorically and otherwise. So you have the potentiality also of somebody's channeling or something you receive yourself one-on-one. I mean, the narrative is the potential narrative. The narrative is the potential narrative, just like we were talking about earlier. But I mean, we really do have to learn this, and I know it's probably not even the right word anymore, discernment, this confidence, this spiritual confidence, this reliance on ourselves as being, or having the ability to align, or at least be in that trajectory.
Absolutely. Discernment and being willing to evolve and change your beliefs and your opinions as things unfold. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced the same as I have. You think you've got a handle on something, and then it expands further and you've got more questions. There seems to be more questions than answers coming in, and you're just going, okay, we need to expand further. What's actually going on here? And feeling that confidence in what you're understanding and seeing how that makes you feel. And as I said, for me, when I realized that a lot of these new age stories of who we've been in the past, and that life's a lesson here, and we're all in school, and where to blame for all that's going on here. And I just realized that just doesn't resonate with me, does not work for me.
No, the guilt trip's over.
Oh, absolutely. And that's it. We have to recognize how often it is projected onto us that it's our fault. This is our doing. And in fact, it's not. We have been hoodwinked, we have been tricked. Vows, contracts, spells, curses, black magic that have come in. We've been naive, wanting to come in and experience really heaven on earth in a physical earth suit, and through being naive got caught by these darker beings. And it's time to really no longer consent to this manipulation and sabotage, which is
really being drilled down to our moment-by-moment existence. And like a young kid in England said on the show one day, 23 years old, he said, if I'm in any type of connection or relationship and I see myself as a victim or the other person, then I am basically feeding that monster. I'm feeding that programming, that false programming, distorted programming. So really, we have all these multi-dimensional channelings, downloads, transmissions, relationships, connections, memories coming in. But it all gets, I don't know, I'm seeing it as it's all this beautiful simplicity, this beautiful infinite flow of it's all up to me. It's literally our contribution, my contribution, if I use myself as an example, I can contribute the most by handling my shift, you know?
Without a doubt. And that's where we're all stepping up. It doesn't mean that we have to all have the same mission here, but have that common, the commonality of embodying the light and emanating those frequencies wherever and whatever you're doing is the path. This is the mission, is to be that light, and to, through that light, to start to dissolve the fixed paradigms of the darker agenda here. Yeah,
which is all the control. And like I heard for years and years when I woke up, and I haven't heard a lot compared to most people, was whatever you're creating in your role in Soulogy, you can't do anything like it's been done before, because it's all tainted, basically. It's all been massaged a little bit. You've got to stay in that pure, spontaneous flow. If it's one video production or show or some concept or whatever, is to stay in this present flow. And that's this, you know, what you're talking about with this conditioning and the programming, and then you're talking about you elevate and you feel kind of smart, and then you have this higher awareness and you start to see these things you didn't see before. This stuff has gone as deep can go, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Although I think we're going deeper. I think we're going even further. And as I said when we started the program today, you know, people experiencing these different timelines, and this is becoming more and more evident. And this is really waking people up. Wow. You know, I had a woman contact me the other day after listening to some of my work, and she woke up to go to work. She was in a different house. She was driving a different car to a different job. She had a dog that she didn't have in her other. She really had this experience. Then throughout the day, there was this sort of explosion, and next thing she's back in her bathroom of her original house, driving her original car to her original job. Now she's experienced some other parallel timeline, and it was very evident to her. And this is happening to people that aren't even that awake, who have been, you know, they haven't necessarily had other things happen. This was just a sort of one-off, oh my gosh, that sets them off researching what's really happening. And this particular person also then received a phone call from her mother on a landline to see how she was going. Her mobile phone rang. She said to her mother, I'm just answering the mobile phone. And it was her mother on the mobile phone ringing to see how she was. And she said, well, you're on the other line, Mum. And the mum's going, what are you talking about? Her son arrived, and actually her son actually came into the room and actually confirmed what she was experiencing. She was so shocked she didn't ask her mum on each phone line, where are you, what time is it, what are you wearing, and what day is it? So she was just profoundly shocked by that. But, you know, these experiences are happening for people. We are seeing evidence of this, you know, this matrix system, or this virtual reality, or this construct. And we just, again, have to take pieces of this puzzle and actually start bringing them in and learning from people's experiences and seeing, what does this mean? What does this mean for us all?
That's
what
exactly
are we
right.
capable of?
Yeah, so that's what I was getting at earlier. Like, you know, it's now we know, and what do we do now? We know what's going on. And is it as simple as we take responsibility, we take ownership, we embody, however, you know, and apply all this stuff, and forget about the past life memories, and forget about my connection with Kuan Yin and this and that. This was all to wake us up, to bring us to this point, to be present, but to be present with all of this at our disposal for the highest good. How do we do that? How do we do that? Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. But I mean, is there...
Yeah, well, for me, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is drop self-concern. It's the self-concern that takes us out of the present moment. It's the continual rumination in guilt and fear and shame and anxiety that actually, you know, takes us out of the present moment. We're projected into time. So we're not in that present now moment. So for me, the minute self-concern arises, recognize that it's a program or it's an interference. It's not you, it's not yours. And actually tell it to, you know, go away. And really, you know, even emotions that come up. I mean, I have experiences where I'm feeling great, drop my kids off at school, turn the car around, and then to get hit with an energy of anxiety. Now, nothing's changed, nothing's gone on, and I'm going, what is this? Have I picked up a collective consciousness of anxiety and fears? Have I been, zapped with some negative energy? Is there some entity? And just going, hang on, this isn't mine. There's nothing going on. There's no problem here. And getting back to the present moment, and it dissolves. And it doesn't mean, oh, I haven't done the work. I'm not, clear enough, understanding that these things are coming at us to try and sabotage us, and then push back on it and not be caught in the, oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Look, I haven't done enough work. And recognize, no, you are strong. Sit in that present moment and reject most of this stuff now.
So this is cool. This is like a slight twist on what we might call inner work or shadow work, where through your explanation, I can see the importance of the shadow work. Obviously, I mean, living with Morgan, it's a lifestyle, but what I'm saying is that the reason that was important was to remove the program's ability to trigger you or activate you, however you want to say it. But you kind of put a twist on it to where you can actually, I don't want to say bypass it, but when it comes in, recognize, period, it's just not yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've all done a lot of work to get to this point. We've looked at our shadows, we've looked at our programs, and then when things get reactivated, we have to move away from, oh, I haven't, done enough deep inner work. It's actually no way. This is set up. This is virtual reality implants of experiences or activations of timelines that bleed in, creating these anxieties and fears. And this is endless. So we need to get to a point where we just go, enough now.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm worthwhile. I'm an infinite particle, infinite energy connected to source. And I'm a sovereign being, and it's cosmic law that I should be able to experience who I really am and bring in my gifts, bring in my frequencies, and live a life of peace and joy. And anything that's not that, I don't want to be bothered with.
Yeah, that's sovereignty.
Absolutely. So, returning to this sovereignty and not consenting to continuously being sabotaged and manipulated through whatever method that they're doing. And I think, again, we need to move away from the guilt and shame. I've seen a lot of people that have done a lot of work who are very awakened, who have been hit with diseases, neurological disorders that have been coming in because of the biological warfare and the toxins in the environment. And perhaps in years gone by, you could actually connect it with, oh, yes, I've got anger issues, or I've got this, or I've got that. But now it's just a matter of like paintball. People are just literally being sprayed with this stuff. And regardless, whereas they're caught up in the guilt of, oh, I'm not clean enough, I'm still inadequate, I'm not aligned. In fact, if they start claiming their sovereignty, aligning with their truth, get rid of their guilt, they'll find that their disease process will actually start to settle down.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of evidence come through on these shows of people, to a lesser degree, healing, physical healing, other types of healing, but also these fairy tales. There's a lot of fairy tales happening too now. Be it couples, be it individuals, being, displaced or ejected, however you want to look at it, from jobs, relationships, homes, hearing this, or heeding the higher self guidance, and walking miracles are formulating around the world, it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's amazing where people are being guided and cleaned and deprogrammed by this organic process that's taking place. But be mindful of the fact that this is not going to be welcomed by the dark agenda, and that's where the sabotage will ramp up for people as the light comes in. They'll be isolated as they lose their jobs and their partners, and go through some financial turmoil. But just hold fast to who they are and know the synchronicities are being set up. And as we hold on to those frequencies, you start connecting with people that are able to support your journey. And so, it's difficult. And as I say to people, if you haven't really been brought to your knees a few times on this journey, from my opinion, you're really not on the journey, because it's difficult. It is not easy. We've got other humans, or even so-called soulless bots that are around us, and they're the first level of policing. Oh, you're mad, you're not right, this is wrong, stop what you're doing, because it makes them feel uncomfortable. It's bringing up things that they're going to need to look at, and people don't want that.
That's right. Yeah. So we can look at, are we projecting? Are we blaming, shaming, externalizing? Because when you said concern, well, not or to align with that frequency, not having self-concern. I totally get that, which also means maybe removing the distraction and potential distortion of when you concern yourself with others.
Absolutely. So self-concern can extend to the concern of your loved ones. It's concern for your children, concern for getting into a deeper level of trust, remembering who we are. We're not from here. We're multidimensional galactic beings of light. We're peace, love, joy, and well-being. There's this small aspect that's trapped here, and we're now getting access to these higher frequencies to pour into this physicality, to deprogram, and just keep trusting the process.
Yeah. And the level of what we might in the past have called paranormal experiences, visitations, seems to be increasing rapidly as well. I guess everything's paralleling.
Absolutely. And people are, opening up to more and more, seeing this, experiencing this, having off-world experiences, having beings visit them, having, in my healing sessions, beings coming in that they can see. People who have never been able to see before will start to see as we increase our frequencies and go into different dimensions. And so the assistance is there, and keep trusting that. And keep, remembering that as you sit in that place of peace, love, and joy, and create from the light that you are, you're no longer being programmed into these scenarios, these default programs of reactivity that then set up ripple effects into your reality that are difficult to deal with. It's through the peace in the present moment that you actually become like a knife cutting through water, not creating distortions in your field. Yeah.
Wow. This is good. This is intense. This is a great session. So it's like, this year especially, things have moved so fast. Almost like, I would look at it this way, almost like up until the end of last year, we were kind of on the defense. And then now it seems like our offensive or forward motion, conscious, being in conscious compatibility or control of it. I don't want to use that word, but working with it, aligning with it, seems to really be speaking louder and louder every day. And it's just moving so fast. Some people come on here and they'll channel or deliver a message and they'll say, wow, the whole universe is sitting on the edge of its seat. Can't believe how fast y'all have come and how far you've come, and they're wondering how far you'll take it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think that we are seeing this acceleration of this ascension process. And what I see is the more that we align with it and the more that we absorb this light, then the more we can absorb. It's an exponential growth. And so it gets more and more rapid, and the assistance can come in and the veils thin, and we get support from each other as we're connecting. And so I think it is accelerating, and I think that's very exciting because we're seeing evidence of the work that we've put in, and that we actually are doing a great job here, even though people feel sometimes they're not contributing. But simply by bringing in the frequencies, sitting in the present moment and radiating out that light is actually assisting this greatly. And so I do see an acceleration happening, and I see more and more people, they're contacting me saying, I get what you're saying. And I didn't understand any of this a year ago, but now I understand it. It resonates. And, they come and they're very receptive. I'm noticing people more easily shift in my sessions. They seem to be more open. I'm also working with a group of people in Korea. I've got through a conference I did in Hong Kong, a connection with Korea. There's a group of Koreans that are coming online with me having these sessions, and they're blowing my mind how receptive they are. Now, they've been doing spiritual work for various number of years for various individuals, but their receptivity, and they're shifting and they're changing, and they all look different and they feel different, and profound things are happening in their lives. And so this is, you know, this is very real. I'm seeing the evidence of it, and it's great. It's very heartening, and we can have this positive outlook for this future that we are co-creating, instead of having the negative beings, the negative entities, the energies manipulating and controlling that future for us.
Yeah, that's a great point. And energetically speaking, not literally, because there's so many points of contention and we get lost in semantics. There's been quite a bit written and spoken about over the last, I want to say, at least 8 months, maybe a year, where there's the story of, say, such a quarantine around the earth for a period of time, but that, I guess, in other words, a lot of this energy that we might refer to as dark, that was controlling, that held secreted esoteric knowledge, has been moved out of the, what are your thoughts on that?
Look, I think a lot of it has been shut down because we're not feeding into it, because these negative entities and beings need our energy. We are the fuel source for these beings, for them to be present in this dimension. So when we're not coming from those lower frequency emotions, reactions, and triggers, they're losing their fuel. And so their power is actually being, is waning. And when we remember we are more powerful, we are more connected, and they need us. So
Yes.
when we stop feeding into them, with our negativity and our reactivity, they're being starved. And so this is shutting them down. They're no longer as powerful. And, this is happening in the reality that people are switching off the mainstream news. They're switching off their televisions. They're no longer engaging in the mainstream narratives that have been being produced by this negative agenda. So the more of us that are pulling back from that, the more that we're actually fueling up a higher frequency environment around us and starving the dark agenda.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So much of what was deeply embedded in our DNA and cellular and all that, it was the fight. We got to fight this. We got to fight that. And the beautiful thing about this, I tell Morgan every other day, so this is our job. Is it that simple? Because it's been such a complicated existence that we just work on ourselves, and that we focus on our direct environment and be present. And you're right. Even if you go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they talk about the archons, that they can't create, they can only distort, but they have to have fuel to distort it. And what you're basically saying is we're cutting off their sustenance when we honor ourselves, see ourselves, and even have the desire to find ourselves, because as we know, like begets like, the energy is going to assist us and meet us.
Yeah, absolutely. And remembering that at our truth, we are peace, love, and joy, well-being, self-healing. We are these infinite beings of light, and that our true nature is this. And I've actually just had an experience. I've just come back from the Himalayas up north in India, and I went to a very small village that's really virtually off the grid. They're only using electricity for a few hours a day. They only have Wi-Fi for a few hours. And this community exists without cars. They're living off the land. They put back into the land what they take out. They're assisting each other. They've got, they use sort of sundials in a way to work out when to take their animals up into the fields for the summer and bring them down for winter. There's virtually no depression, anxiety, fears. There's no youth suicide or youth, behaviours that are causing distress. We've got minimal cancers. We've got a population of 3,000 where there's virtually no cancer, and we've got elderly that are part of the community, not locked up in elderly homes, but actually still living active roles right up until their 90s. And so this is who we are. And I was really taken by this village that I was visiting, and almost an anthropological study taking place where I'm going, here is our natural state. It's closer than anything else I've observed before. And our natural state is not competition. It's not jealousy. It's not reactivity. It's not anxiety and depression. It's actually community, working with each other. It's connecting with the land and connecting to our energies. And it's so evident when we're pulled back from the technologies, the industrialization and the programming, that this is who we really are.
Yeah, that's powerful explanation. You know, because it's affecting our human interactions, which is really the core of our experience, you know, and well, at least where we're coming from. But, you know, it's like there's a lot of, you know, I don't want to say conflict, static. There's a lot of, you know, and I guess what it really boils down to is you describe this from the individual's perspective, is that it's when you start to take the two or more, we're really talking about an unconditional trust. You know, it's beyond unconditional love. It's an unconditional trust. I know who I am, therefore I know who you are, and this allowance and of and accepting of that as well, because obviously our first lines of distinction seem to be between ourselves and other human beings. And I know there's a lot of other stuff we've got to align with and integrate and be at one with, but it really speaks a lot to the the transition, the pains and the sufferings, the elevations, and you know, all that stuff.
And having compassion for ourselves and each other, recognizing when we are reactive or triggered that this is being programmed, this has been activated, and that we can then switch it off. But having that compassion and that understanding for ourselves and each other, and not running the guilt and the shame and the self-concern, and going, okay, this is still part of my process, I'm still transitioning. And actually, when you do get triggered or reactive, let it go, get back onto your light, and not run that program of, oh, there's something wrong with me, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, you know, and really let it go and get back into that present moment. So, you know, deep compassion for your journey and for others' journeys. And when you see others take responsibility for themselves and actually acknowledge where they may have, you know, gone off their, you know, been triggered or reactive, be really open to that and start coming in with a higher level of understanding and forgiveness, because we've all been subjected to this bullshit, basically.
That's right. Thank you. This is Soulogy, so you can use those words. But I always saw it as in the beginning as a, you know, I am soul. That's what I was told. I am soul 8 years ago. And of course, everyone is. But then I started to you know, spend some time with the divine feminine, and I started to realize that we have something else in common. What we have in common is this bullshit that we've all gone through, and that's the value of having these discussions about the experiences that we have, because even though they're not all the same, somehow or another, it's unlocking pieces of the puzzle within ourselves, and then we can become a more, you know, a more effective piece of the big puzzle. But there's a couple of questions I wanted to run past you, because I want to leave some time for you to talk about this conference you're going to be doing, as well as anything else you have coming up, type of work you do, your availability or not, online sessions such as that, whatever you might have. The first thing I wanted to ask you was, do you think that there are some new specific choices that we should be making? And obviously in a general way, but I mean, is there something that we could all kind of begin to select the path to choose, the new choice? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and it goes back to what I said earlier, which is this dropping self-concern. I think the new path forward is seriously dropping self-concern. The minute it arises, the anxieties, the fears, recognize it's a program, and it will shorten that looping or that getting caught back into timelines or into experiences that are not serving. So to me, that choice is the minute the self-concern arises, whether it's an emotional or mental program that's been activated, to just clear it off without this need to go deeply exploring further and further with self-blame and self-doubt. And I think it can be simplified to drop self-concern, become present, and supporting each other to do that. So our reactions with each other need to come from this standing there with compassion in high frequency, telling a person they're going to be okay. Remember who they are. Remember what this is all about, and not actually go down in that frequency and actually support them in the old way of what people used to see as compassion, which was where we'd get down into their stuff and feed their ego with poor you. Yes, this is terrible. But actually say, great, get rid of it. Don't feed it. Get present. You're doing well.
Yeah. Like Morgan used to say to me, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to clear it?
Exactly. And, you know, simplifying. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. We had an incredible show just like this one earlier today. I knew it was going to be a great day with this new friend of ours, a brother, beautiful brother, Puna Mata Kumara Taki Nimarana. And I probably got that wrong a little bit, but a very incredible man, very incredible show for anyone who hadn't seen it. He had some diagrams behind him on the wall. He is Maree, and he had, I guess, through oral history, spoken oral history, and also downloads and such, very much had a handle on the story in a way that I thought was very interesting, unique, and intriguing. But the point is in the middle of these circles, and each one of them represented different things. He referred to them as Sector 1, Sector 2, Sector 3, and 4, and 5. But Sector 1 was an incredible image, which was basically divine union. The frequency of pure love, creation, the father, son, the feminine, masculine child, however you want to put it. Now, like I said earlier in the show, I look at everything as being potentially a program. It's got the potential to be one. You got to be open-minded. A lot has been said about twin flames, soulmates, divine partners, complements and such. Is there, in your opinion, in your studies and research, is there something to the physical incarnation of a masculine and a feminine and the third energy they produce that is somehow a base component in this transition, this conversion we call ascension?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, many people contacting me, having had experiences of meeting somebody for the first time, having that familiarity with them, knowing them deeply somehow. And it becomes an activation, and it can become extremely overwhelming. It can be catapulting for people. And of course, people then get caught up in a 3D understanding and reality that this means that they're going to, have a lifelong partnership working together. It doesn't always mean that. It can just simply be an interaction, a union, an activation, and then you separate to go on your paths. But many are actually being activated to work together because 1 + 1 actually brings in higher frequencies. 1 + 1 = 10 in terms of the support and the frequencies that can come in when you're working with other people. But also be mindful of the fact that this is also being interfered with. Yeah. So we have scenarios of the love bite. So we have energies that are coming in that are activating, that are tricks. And so really digging deeply and going, okay, what's going on here, and really observing the experience and not getting too swept up in the idea of the twin flame and soulmate, and just being sensible about it. But definitely this is a phenomenon. It is definitely something, but again, it's getting distorted. Yeah. And so we have to be careful with that.
Yeah, and the basic rule applies again, regardless of what template or program you might be looking at, is to be vigilant in your own self-awareness and like you said, the measure of the lack of self-concern, which is
absolutely.
a very simple way to put it.
And holding that lack of self-concern and holding that higher frequency and allowing things to unfold in the way that they should, rather than micromanaging from programs of who and what you think you're going to be. And the path is never linear. So you'll be doing certain things and then that may stop and then something else arises, and then you recognize that something that you were involved in 6 months ago is actually feeding into something now, or a synchronicities come up. It's not linear, and I think we have to understand that, and also get out of time where we're going, when's it going to happen, what's going to happen, when will I be there?
That's
because
right.
there is no getting there. It is now. And so recognizing that and not projecting into, it's got to look a certain way and then becoming disappointed. And that's where we have to drop our attachments and our expectations of how this is going to unfold.
Yeah.
We have a bit of intuition about it, but really sit in that intuition and just be with it rather than try and micromanage, force, or push. And if you're feeling exhausted or overwhelmed, you're taking on a self-responsibility from a human program of what's supposed to happen. If there's an exhaustion or a stress, it's because you're trying to push or manipulate through something.
Yes, I'm loving this. The expectation, the conditions. I mean, if we look at the distorted consciousness and what we're all coming into now, one of them has a frequency of unconditional love. And the other one, the distorted one, is conditional.
Absolutely.
I will love you if, I will accept you if. And I love what you said too. I had a great conversation with Franco Di Carlo a couple of weeks ago, and talking about nothing's ever perfect. If you're going to wait for it to be perfect, you're going to miss it. And so we're getting past having to polish something up, have it all professional, and stay in that spontaneous. And we say on the show, spontaneous, intuitive, creative, imaginative, and depending on what we're talking about, courageous. But this is, then that's present. Spontaneous is present. Intuitive is present. And I love what you say too about take the linear out of it. Because in our human interactions, and of course with the electronic age, you know how it is. I mean, you message somebody, I'm not very good at it, but if I message somebody and they message me right back, or they'll say, why haven't you answered me? And it's been 20 minutes. Well, in my life, it's been about 2 seconds. You know what I mean? So taking the linear out seems to be a very healthy aspect or consideration, because it takes that time constraint off of not just me, but my brother, my sister. Hey, I'll get back to you when I get back to you. And I had a little download come in a couple of weeks ago, and I told Morgan, and it was a stress reliever. There was something lifted, and it said, kind of like, you know what, you got 1,000 years in this space. You got all the time in the world. And I was like, wow, that's just like, yes. What's the rush? What's the hurry?
Absolutely. And then that helps you stay present. You drop the expectations and you drop judgments of how things may unfold or how a person is meant to respond. And you stop running the stories of, oh, they haven't got back to me, they must be angry or rejecting me, and actually get out of all that and just see things as they are, with a purity from that higher frequency instead of the distortions. So, absolutely. Dropping the expectations of how this is going to unfold.
Yeah. And I find the conversations don't need to be very long.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the other thing you were saying about the perfection that people feel, oh, I need to be perfect before I embark on this. And what I'm finding with a lot of people that have been sabotaged in some way, that they've been saying, oh, I must heal myself, until I'm rid of, this, neurological disorder or this, fear or whatever, before I can actually start bringing in the frequencies and assisting others. And what I've found is some of these people are accomplished healers that have actually been slammed with something and have then been put off their work. And as they've left their work of bringing in the light and assisting others, they're actually getting sicker. And I've said, no, you can do your work. Step up, do the work. And people are finding that they're actually more energized and actually healing themselves by helping, it's the service to others that comes in and then actually fuels them and assists them. So getting away from this idea that we have to be perfect before we can assist others. We're all bringing in pieces of the puzzle, bringing that compassion and assist people along the way. And actually, I'd encourage people to step up into their healing abilities and start using them, because that will actually help heal them.
Yeah. Right on. So, okay. This is your minute, as we go out the door, 5-10 minutes, whatever. This is the platform to support energy like you, people like you. You know, where can people find you? Do you offer one-on-one sessions online, events online? And
Yeah.
please, before you go, make sure that you let us know about the conference that you're going to with Maya Sevenson and Laura Eisenhower, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, let us know what that's about as well.
Right. Well, look, I'm very excited about that conference. That's actually happening next weekend here, just out of Melbourne, in a place called Healesville. It's over the weekend, starting Friday through till Monday. So it's over the weekend of the 26th of July. And it's going to be an amazing conference, a full, experience. This is going to be a visceral experience. This is going to help shift people mentally, emotionally, physically, clean their energies. And we're really, we're blessed to have Laura Eisenhower flying out for this conference, and she's an incredible healer, a wealth of knowledge, as is Maya Sevenson, who brings in these galactic Mayan codes, and her work is phenomenal. So I love the fact that it's the three of us getting together and holding space. And the people that have signed up for this are very accomplished, a lot of them are quite accomplished healers. So the frequency is going to be very high. And we're going to have a great time. So thoroughly looking forward to that. That's called Weaving the Dream, and people can just look up that website of that same name and actually contact and get in touch with Maya, who will organise their ticketing. And people who can't attend for the full weekend could come for part of it, or people who don't want to be involved in the accommodation. I think there's an allowance for that as well. So have a look at that. And I've got people that I've done work with who are in America who are actually flying out from America to partake in this conference. So it's great. It's not going to be huge. It's going to be fairly intimate, and it's going to be a great experience. So a wonderful time.
Wow.
So yeah, that's great. And yes, I do one-on-ones, and I do them on Skype, and I'm pleased to say that it's very effective even through Skype. The energies come in. I can even shapeshift for people, the frequencies, the light comes in, people see things. People are experiencing phenomenal shifts. Technologies, devices and implants that are enmeshed in their very being, pretending to be them, can lift off, and actually people can physically feel them, see them, and actually experience this shift. I'm getting people that have had, a lot of neurological disorders, optic neuritis, or, some sort of MS type disorders, actually having significant healings take place. I never say to people, oh, I can cure you, because this is it's an interaction. It's to do with people's receptivity to my work. It's not just me, it's how people are bringing in their light as well. But very effective in shifting anxieties and depressions, and helping people with obsessive compulsive disorders, or whatever it is that's going on is helped. And I'm really amazed by how effective it is on Skype. It's great. And then in person, I'm here in Mount Eliza, just out of Melbourne in Australia, and a lot of people are starting to come to see me in person, which is great. And that's obviously very effective. And yeah, so I'm available. How people can get in contact with me, the best way is by email. So my email is bachelormaree at gmail.com, and that's BATCHELORMAREE at gmail.com. Otherwise, people can find me, Facebook message me, Skype. My name is Maree Batchelor, all lowercase, one word. And I'm very, I love hearing from people. It's an interactive experience. It's always different each time. Some people are working with me regularly. Some have one-off and feel profound shifts, and it's all up to their intuitive guidance. And certainly if people feel they resonate with what I'm saying, then it's great. It's really effective.
Okay.
So, yeah, and then what else is coming up? I'm doing some talks. I'm going up to Sydney again for Connecting Consciousness Australia in August, and I'm speaking at a few events in Melbourne. over in August, and then I'm heading to Korea to run some workshops actually in September, which I'm very excited about. And talking about without coming with expectations, I had no idea that Korea was going to be a place that would be so loving and supportive of my work, but they're very keen for me to get over there, and I'm very excited about that as well.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
It really is. That's fantastic. What a great example of what we're all walking into. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for opening up a lot of energetic doors for a lot of people. Let me ask you one last question. You know, a lot of people that have been in this for a while, sometimes I look at them and I wonder, because we've all been through such a grind, how optimistic, you know, how optimistic are they? How do you feel about how we've done and what we're doing and our potential to correct this situation with all its repercussions throughout dimensions and universes and such? What do you think our chances are really making this thing happen in a profound way, a profound shift of the universe?
I think we're seeing it, and I'm very optimistic about it. I just think that, you know, we are really, you know, as we were talking about, it's accelerating. More and more people are getting activated. More and more people are understanding and opening up to this. And with that, the more of us that are aligning with this truth and bringing in these frequencies, it does get even further accelerated. So, you know, I'm very positive about it. I think for people that have been on the journey for a long time, I think that they do get disheartened. And part of that is also this, you know, the projection into the narratives of when it's going to happen, the date of disclosure or the date of, you know, the big shift and the big wave. I think we have to pull away from specific dates and just know that this is unfolding. And then, you know, again, drop the self-concern, get in the present moment, find your peace, find your joy, find those frequencies that actually support you. And when it happens and how it happens then becomes irrelevant, because you're feeling good. It's not about an end goal. It's actually about being in the moment and feeling that well-being as we go through this.
I agree with you. I think people should stop talking about the event because it's just activating or continuing the program.
Absolutely. And when we have a date and that date comes and goes and nothing happens, then people take to their bed with a depression of, oh my God, nothing's going to happen. And that's precisely what the dark want. They want us in states of fear and misery and disappointment to feed off us. So don't feed the beast. Am I feeding the beast? Is this reaction feeding the beast?
I think we should starve them and, you know, at the same time, open our hearts. And just
absolutely starve the beast and open our hearts to the truth, open our hearts and the compassion to each other, and really let's get on with this. But no, I'm very positive about what's happening. I mean, look, simply what's happened to me in this short time and where I'm going and what I'm doing and what I'm seeing is just an example of it. Us having this conversation is an example of it. The woman who said she saw the interview a few weeks ago before it had even happened. Come on, we are really now creating, you know, what would have been called miracles before, but this is who we really are. These are our gifts and abilities. This is the access that is our sovereign right, and it's cosmic law. Let's stand in cosmic law and no longer consent to the bullshit.
That's right. Well, you're speaking my language. We're from the same hood, I guess. It was a great pleasure meeting you. Really down to earth and straightforward, direct, and yeah.
I've loved my time with you. I'm very, you know, very pleased to be here, and you know, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this. And it does generate an energy, and if we're assisting people out there and we're bringing in some information and pieces of the puzzle that assist, well, that's our job, and we're on our mission, and it's great to connect with others and do this.
Absolutely. So thank you. The best to you and yours.
Excellent. Yeah, big hugs to you and to Morgan, and thanks again for all that you do.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.